Members, without objection, we will move to adjourn in memory by Senator Hertzberg. Senator, you're prepared. Members, I'm going to ask you to take your seats and hold down on the chatter. Thank you. Senator Hertzberg, the floor is yours.
Very loud. Every single time. It was cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Ben. Members, it is with deep, deep sadness that I rise in memory of one of our own, a member of this esteemed and respected body who sat right over there where Senator Roth is sitting, passed away. He was a friend of mine and a friend of so many in this room today, and a courageous leader of our state. His name, Senator Gary K. Hart. Senator Hart passed away on January 27th after a hard-fought battle with pancreatic cancer. We are fortunate to have his wife, Carrie, here in the chambers, up in the gallery with us today. Thank you so much for her being here. And we're also fortunate to have one of Gary's longtime staffers, Phyllis Chow, with us. Phyllis worked with Gary for over 12 years in the Senate. Also, we'd like to recognize her, and to the extent I can't see up there, but I'm told there may be some other staffers who worked with him over the years, here to celebrate Senator's great legacy. I had the pleasure of serving with Senator Hart and getting to know him here in this chamber and on the board of the Public Policy Institute of California, where we served together. I saw firsthand as his legislator and at the PPIC what an extraordinary student of public policy he was. And I can say without a doubt, members, that millions of Californians have benefited from Senator Hart's devotion and extraordinary contribution to public service. His career began in a classroom where he taught high school government. How fitting. He brought that experience with him as he committed himself to bettering our state's education system. Senator Hart was first elected to the Assembly in 1974 and served there until 1982, when he was elected to the California State Senate. His service in the legislature spanned 3 governors, Governor Brown, Governor Deukmejian, and Governor Wilson, during a time when California was more purple in its politics. 2 of the 3 governors he served with were Republicans. He's perhaps best known for his work in transforming California schools. His work to reduce class size, improve teacher quality, and establish graduation requirements. His landmark legislation in 1992 established the charter schools in California, paving the way for 1,300 charter campuses we see across the state today, and that collectively serve 1 in 10 California students. While education was his passion, he also advanced extraordinary legislation on critical environmental issues and women's rights. Gary created a solar tax credit that helped California become a worldwide leader in solar innovation and adoption, while also furthering environmental and coastal protections. He also passed a law to increase child support for divorced women. That is just the tip of the iceberg of what Senator Hart did here in this chamber and in the other house during his time here in the legislature, and there are few who can claim so many far-reaching policy successes. As many of you know, after he served in the legislature, he eventually went on to become the education secretary to Governor Gray Davis, the governor's first appointment when he got elected governor. While secretary, Senator Hart helped implement the state's first high school exit exam, ensured our graduating seniors possessed the right skills no matter what school they attended. Members, we think about the greats who once stood where we stand today. We must think of leaders like Senator Hart. Senator Hart was such a principled person, and he gained respect from both sides of the aisle. Governor Davis recently said that he could not recall a single person in Sacramento who ever said a critical word about Gary, and I think that is absolutely true, and I have the same recollection. You will always knew where Gary stood on issues. Most legislators held a deep respect for him because his actions were always motivated by what he thought was the right thing to do. He attributed much of his legislative success to being able to closely work with members of both parties, and importantly, his dedicated and loyal staff. Again, as I said earlier, he leaves his wife, Gary Hart, who's here today, a pediatrician at Kaiser, with his 3 daughters, Alyssa, Catherine, and Laura. Gary was a great public servant who really wanted to make a difference, and he most certainly did. Members, please join with me in adjourning in the memory of Senator Gary K. Hart, a leader among leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hertzberg. Senator Lamont.
Thank you. Members, today I rise to honor the former Senator Gary Hart from the Central Coast. As leaders, we often looked at whose steps we are following, what those before us have done. Gary Hart is certainly one of those leaders whose steps preceded mine. As one of the senators who has followed his representation of the Central Coast, I'm honored to recognize his accomplishments while he served in the legislature. Gary's commitment to Santa Barbara and Ventura counties set changes in motion for many of our constituents, which I can proudly say we have in common. More notably has been his work to strengthen our education system. Our educators and students all around understood his impact. Whether it was funding for K through 12 and higher education, class size, teacher professional development, or his legislation creating a path for charter schools in the state, Gary's dedication in Sacramento has influenced millions of lives in California. His passion for education is how he championed efforts that led the establishment of Cal State University Channel Islands, Camarillo, in the district. CSUCI has now seen over 22,000 students graduate since the university accepted its first class in 2002, thanks to the work done by Gary and others. As the current senator for the 2 Central Coast counties, work to protect coastal access and the environment, we have to acknowledge what Gary prioritized in our community, protecting our coast, especially from offshore oil projects. In addition, we cannot overlook his legislation creating the solar tax credit. As I read several pieces about Gary in the district following the announcement of his passing, it was evident that he was highly respected. I remember getting into office and meeting with Gary in my office here in Sacramento to just talk about some of the accomplishments that he had while in Sacramento, but that reflected the voices and the lives of the Central Coast. His character led to policy changes for the betterment of our entire state. Although it was a brief meeting, it was a glimpse of his personality and what he brought to the Capitol when he represented Santa Barbara and Ventura counties for over 20 years. When you talk to people in the district, the one common word they use to describe Gary is integrity. I am humbled to follow in his work and join the Senate today to adjourn in the memory of Senator Gary Hart.
Thank you, Senator Lamont. Senator Nielsen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, it strikes me as a little bit challenging. The other day when I got word of the passing of Senator Hart, it was kind of like, that can't happen. He was always going to be here. And I prayed and pondered about that, and I realized that Gary Hart always will be here, of one of the Senate. Some, a very few, passed through here, having made little note nor long to leave to be remembered. Not so with Senator Gary Hart. A true gentleman, very steeped in the traditions of this institution, respectful of those institutions, and a great example. And I do hope that he be remembered here for those contributions to the integrity of this institution. Gary had a natural affinity as an educator to be an expert in education. But as acknowledged here, he had many other areas that he cared about. My most special time was working with Gary Hart, and John Vasconcellos on doing a new master plan for the state of California, the mission, goals, and interrelationships of the 3 levels of higher education. One of my great mementos is a picture of a committee room with those of us who were a part of that conference committee, Gary and John, sitting around a table signing the conference report to put that into effect. As we signed and mused about the contribution, I thought about what a legacy that master plan is. Not was, but is. Knowing at the time that that effort would go on through the generations and thousands, millions would profit by it, would never know anything of those who helped make that so. Gary also was courageous. Charter schools have never been a high point of sympathy with some in public education. But Gary, as a recognized leader of public education, embraced the role of charter schools in the quality of education, not as a competitor, but as a complement. And his pioneering legislation lives on this day. Once upon a time, we used to do a lot of interim hearings. And that's when those few of us on those interim committees got to spend a little bit of one-on-one time with each other, and in evenings having dinner after the hearing. And I remember many such occasions with Gary, because I did a number of things in education as well, and other areas wherein we served on conference committees. He was a problem solver, never confrontational, but firm in his conviction and adamant about what he believed in and advocated for. All I can say, ladies and gentlemen, as I speak here with a bit of a heavy heart, I'm also rejoicing, for this is really an occasion for celebrating, not bemoaning and mourning, but of celebrating a life well lived, contributions well made, and they will live on. Such will be the legacy, Gary Hart. Our hearts go out to his family, who will harbor far fonder memories than we can ever hope to enjoy. But we know that this man lives on in our hearts and in this institution that he made such great contributions to. God bless you, Gary Hart. May you be with the Lord.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Senator Umberg.
Thank you, colleagues. 32 years ago, when I came to the Assembly, I got a call not long after I was here that Senator Gary Hart wanted to have breakfast with me. And I thought, why does United States Senator Gary Hart, presidential aspirant, want to have breakfast with me, a 33-year-old Assembly person? But to my great good fortune, it was Senator Gary K. Hart. And we went to breakfast, and from that point forward, I became a huge admirer of Senator Hart. He chaired the Senate Education Committee. I sat on the Assembly Education Committee, and his vision, his intellect, his respect for the institution and respect for all who served in the institution, his gentle but very persuasive method of advocacy was most effective. He was then what I aspired to be as a legislator, and what I aspire to be now as a legislator, and maybe what we all should aspire to be. Someone who took very seriously his role as a steward of California and did a magnificent job, both as a as an example and as a servant of California, and I join all of you in adjourning in his memory.
Thank you. Senator Pan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, wish to rise and adjourn in memory of Senator Gary K. Hart. And while he represented the Central Coast, he certainly had a huge impact here in my district here in Sacramento. In 2003, Mr. Hart established the PACE program at Sacramento's John F. Kennedy High School. And PACE is a successful honors humanities program that encouraged students to be civically engaged. In fact, more than 2,000 students have already graduated from the program, including my very own legislative director, was able to experience the thrill of this building through the PACE's internship program. He continued to inspire students with his stories and experiences as he taught government classes at Sac State. And Senator Hart was always known for keeping an eye on his students and would write personal letters to them to congratulate them on their accomplishments. He inspired generations, and his legacy will continue to motivate many generations to come. I, too, want to give my personal condolences and sympathies to his wife, Gary Hart, who is a colleague of mine in pediatrics, and again, wish to express my sympathies. And no, I can't see her from down here at the gallery, but I want to, again, express my sympathies and also recognize his family as well. Again, I wish that also that we adjourn in memory of Senator Gary Hart. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pan. Senator Stern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in this beautiful chorus across the aisle and many generations of leadership in memory of Gary Hart. I was at another one of those breakfasts. I don't know if it was the same year as my Senate colleague from Orange County, but 33 years old as well, and just getting started in public service. And a lot of people looking at me like, what are you doing here, kid? You know, it's not your time yet, and you got to wait. And when I sat down to breakfast with Gary Hart, it wasn't about any of the politics or any of the pomp. It was just substance. He wanted to talk about electric vehicles and open space and assuring me I was coming in this part of a district that people said, well, I don't know if they're really going to be on board with an environmental attorney or with somebody who cares about issues of justice, or you got to go easy on that stuff. You shouldn't, you know, you're in East Ventura County. You have Simi Valley. You represent, you know, the northwestern part of LA, but that wasn't his advice. His advice is people are fundamentally good, and it didn't matter where I represented. I could just be myself. And to move our areas, I mean, from Santa Barbara all the way down through Ventura County in LA, and not shapeshift and be the same person everywhere you went, that was a special thing to be exposed to at a very early part of my career and very formative. And so I remember we had pancakes. I was very impressed. He ate the entire plate. It was a man who'd not left this building even though he was gone. And that kind of legacy to me is a different way to approach a job like ours, that you can think you've got your time and then you move on. But that part of him that just wouldn't let go of public policy making and of service, that had one more idea for you in the coming year, or have you thought of this, or just still going with the work. That's the true sign of a servant when no one's watching. So I'll miss him dearly, and I wish I had one more of those breakfasts, because, you know, those are the kinds of things you just miss in your life. So I'm glad we're saying his name today and adjourning in his memory.
Thank you. Senator Glazer.
Thank you, Mr. President, members. I join with my colleagues in sharing my own memories of my time with Gary Hart. It was 42 years ago that I first met him as a young, impressionable student leader coming to the Capitol to advocate for our community. And at the time, as the senator from the North mentioned, it was John Vasconcellos and Senator Leroy Green, who was chair, I believe, of Senate Education at the time. And Gary Hart was one of those folks who was clear to us was an important leader in the education space, and I needed to get to know. But one of the things that strikes me about the first meeting and all the subsequent observations of him, the course of his legislative career, was that it was never the legislative achievements that I remember, and I know there were many, as have been spoken to today. But really what stuck out for me and continues to this day was that he represented the quality of leadership, the conduct of leadership, more than the substance. He was a good listener. He was thoughtful. He showed me the power of a soft voice, and he had a soft voice. He showed me the importance of graciousness. And so as you look at his career and all the people that he influenced, the staff, some of whom are here, the interns, the fellows, the students in his class, his style and approach to leadership is the thing that I know he invested a lot of his thought to, and it communicated, and it has been effective to all those who have followed him in the path of government or wherever else they have chosen to lead their life. He was a leader of great accomplishment, but he was a leader of great integrity and grace, and he will be deeply missed.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Hearing and seeing none, members, we want to thank you for your tribute to an amazing leader and sharing your stories. I think we will all agree he exemplified what it meant not only to be a great legislator, but a great statesman as well. Will you bring Senator Hart's name forward so it can be properly memorialized? Thank you.